Hello, Scott Ramsey here with our weekly video Bible study. And today I want to bring you Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We're almost finished with this book. Um, it's been an interesting journey through the book. Ecclesiastes is a different kind of book because I believe it gives us a negative example to learn from. The message in here is often not the message that we would expect for God to be giving us. It's being given to us by a character created by Solomon who is looking at life under the sun and trying to figure out what gives it meaning. And so we're at the end of that book. We got two chapters. Today we'll look at chapter 11. Next week we'll look at chapter 12. And I think we'll see that he came to some positive conclusions where he kind of, by shifting his focus, and hopefully it'll show us, remind us that we can shift our focus to a God centered universe. And so I hope that you'll join me today for the 10 verses of chapter 11. Next week, we'll look at the 14 verses of chapter 12. And then we'll be done with the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, I'm not going to tell you today what we're going to do next. I know what we're going to do next. I'm not going to tell you today. You have to tune in next week. That's called a cliffhanger or a hook. But next week I'll let you know what we're going to do after we finish chapter 12 and the whole book of Ecclesiastes next week. So next week will be our last week in Ecclesiastes. I know some of you have had real, I'll just say, sometimes had trouble hanging in there because Ecclesiastes is a hard book. It's a counterintuitive book about the message of the Bible. It says a lot of things that don't really drive with the rest of the message of the Bible. And that's because he's created this false character and put in the mouth of this other character these ideas that are not biblical, that people sometimes come up with about life and about God and about everything. And so we've had to kind of struggle through that. As I say, today and tomorrow, or today and this week, we're going to see he's wrapping up. He's getting his report ready. Remember, this is a search he's been on for 12 chapters, so far for 10 chapters, that he's been on to find meaning in life. Where can I find meaning and purpose in life? That's what he's been looking for. And so now we're coming down to the last hurrah, and it is going to be actually his consideration of his report and of his findings. And he's going to come up with a statement in chapter 12 that I think you will love. Even in chapter 11, he's going to start thinking differently, I believe, about what we've seen going before. Now, we've seen some things in the past in this book. From week to week, we've seen some little glimmers of light. But a lot of times when he's talked about God as a force of nature, a reality, not really a positive force in our life or a person in our life who we should respect or worship or honor. I think we're going to see that change. But let's look at chapter 11. Let me read the first 4 verses and talk about those, and then we'll read verse 5 and we'll just work our way through. So this is chapter 11 of Ecclesiastes. And we'll pray when we're finished today. We'll pray at the end. So this is chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. Cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it again. Give portions to 7, yes, to 8. For you do not know what disaster may come upon the land. If clouds are full of water, they pour out rain. Whether a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. So let's talk about those first four verses. I see a change in focus here. Most of his advice, most of what we've seen so far has been statements of his opinion about what life is or what life is not. Um, but sometimes he'll give us some advice. Because of this, do this. For example, because life is meaningless, because life doesn't matter after the grave, because there's no purpose in life, just eat, drink, and be merry. Make yourself happy. That's all there is. And that is the mindset. I'm going to say this. That's the mindset of a taker. This is a mindset here of a doer, a giver, or a person who puts out effort, puts out themselves for other people, or just puts himself out there. It's more of a giver. It's my life is pouring into your life, or my life is pouring into the world around me. It's no longer I'm going to get what I can and hoard it. Now he's talking about what happens if you cast your bread upon the water. It will come back to you. Talks about setting aside portions for 7 or 8 because you don't know what disaster will come. Setting aside portions for other people. Talks about if clouds full of water, they pour rain upon the earth. So in other words, he's thinking about, I want to be like a cloud that's full of water. I want to be like a cloud that has something to give, and then I'm going to give it. I'm going to pour upon the earth. I'm going to not withhold what I have. I'm not going to hold it for myself. If I'm full of water, so to speak, as a cloud, I'm going to pour that on the earth. I want to be like that. I don't want to be one who, those clouds that hold on to the water. I want to be like those that pour out. It's natural for a cloud that has water to pour that out on the face of the earth. And he says, I want to do that. If I have it in my life, I want to share it. I want to give it. I want to put it out there. Even if it is for my own benefit, at least I'm putting it out instead of taking it in. You know, the other mindset is to get all you can all you get, and sit on the lid. And that's kind of been his approach so far because life has no meaning. Nothing matters after life. Nothing matters after your death. Why save up something for someone else because you're going to be gone and you don't know who's going to get it? Just eat, drink, and be merry. Think about yourself. Here I see a little bit of a shift. I'm not going to say he's had a whole scale conversion of thought, but a mindset that's more about giving than taking. And so we see he's shifting here from his opinions about life, which are largely centered around himself. I need to find meaning. I tried this, I tried that, I tried this other thing. I could not find. I was not happy. Uh, to a life that's at least connected to others. Okay, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's maybe a step in the right direction. And he has, like I say, he's been thinking about his opinions about life. Now he's saying, here's a mindset we might try to pour in, so to speak, to pour into other people, to pour into the people around me, to get to the people around me, to put myself out there. We talk about putting ourselves out there. Okay, and so this is a mindset that really reminds us that we are not meant to live without relationship to other people or relationship to God. But that cloistered mindset that says I'm going to sit in the corner by myself and just see to my own affairs, that's very dark. I think it's part of our fallenness as a species that we isolate from other people. Now, I happen to live alone, but I spend several hours at the church several times a week with other believers. I have people who come into my home for discipleship. I go other places with other people during the week. And so I don't think anybody who knows me would say I live an isolated life. But there are people, and there are people who live with other people, but their life, the way they approach life is isolated. Had you thought about this? It's possible for a whole family of people to live in the same house together and be isolated from each other. And that could be because of problems between the individuals, conflicts. It can also be because of things like this. I have a phone. You probably have one too. They're not evil, but sometimes you might have four people sitting in a room all on their phones. Now you might say, well, they're connecting. Well, they are connecting with somebody somewhere else, but they're in a room full of people, but they're on their phone instead. So it's possible for us to be with people or without people and have a mindset of isolation. The writer here seems to be moving away from that, or at least he's giving some advice that seems to be more about pouring life in. He talked about a tree here in verse 4. No, the last part of verse 3, where whether a tree falls to the north, or I'm sorry, to the south or to the north. In the place it falls, there it will lie. And so I think my best guess as to what this has to do with what he's talking about here, and I'm not sure this is what he means, is that if someone cuts a tree down, it becomes a resource for people. It becomes something people can use. A tree, a standing tree that hasn't been cut down, is part of the forest, right? But if you cut that tree down and it falls, it is there. It is there for people to use, for the person who cut it down, or for other people to use that tree. It is there. And so this person is doing a thing, maybe cutting down a tree in their own forest. And then that way that tree can be used by people. Again, more towards the act of pouring into other people's lives than just saying, well, I've got these trees in my forest, I'm going to keep them, and I don't need them by myself. I don't need all of them, but I don't want anybody else using them. I don't want to lose them because this is life is all it is. Right? Life is only what I see right now, and right now I've got this forest, so I'm going to keep this tree. I'm not going to let anybody else have it. I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to use it for anything. I'm just going to stand there and be a resource that's never used. So there seems to be a mindset in these passages, though, that he is talking about. He's encouraging the reader to realize that in this life, even though it seems futile and meaningless, that there is a place for pouring into the lives of other people. So maybe a step in the right direction. Let's look at verse 6. And then we'll come back to 5 here in just a minute. Verse 6. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let not your hands be idle. For you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. So again, here he's saying, invest yourself, invest your effort, invest your seed in the land. You don't know. Trying is not a guarantee of success, but not trying is a guarantee of failure. Think about that. That's a word of wisdom there. Let me say that again. Trying something is not a guarantee of success, but not trying is a guarantee of failure. And so here he's saying, try. Put that bread on the water. Set aside portions for someone who might need them. Plant your seed. You don't know it's going to grow, but it's not going to grow if you don't plant it. So take the effort, make the effort, take the chance. Invest yourself, pour yourself out of yourself. This book, for the most part, to this point, has been mostly about me and what I'm going to do for myself and how I'm going to find meaning for myself. And if I can't figure it out, I'm just going to pout. I'm going to sit in the corner and pout. Now I think he's changing that mindset because of the things he said, he has seen in his study. Let's go back to verse 5. Because I think verse 5 might help us understand why his mindset is changing. Maybe. Verse 5. As you do not know the path of the wind, or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Now that sounds to me like he's talking about the fact that we cannot on our own understand the way that God thinks. And that's true. Anything that we understand about God is because God has personally revealed that to us through his word, through the church, through other Christians. Through some means he has revealed to us something about himself. We don't discover the truth about God. No matter how smart you are, how much school you've been to. I hope you've had some schooling. Maybe you've been to seminary. Maybe you've been to Sunday school class every day or every Sunday for a lot of years. That's wonderful. Learn those things, but understand everything you learn there about God is not a credit to you so much as it is the fact that God has revealed it to you. You can learn trigonometry or geography or Spanish. You can learn those things without God. But you cannot learn about God, the truth about God, unless he reveals it to you. Because we are fleshly minded on our own, under the sun. But this writer seems to think, okay, maybe there's something here that I can't understand. Maybe this is him saying here, I don't know, it's my theory. Maybe it's not possible for me to find meaning in life on my own, under the sun. If I want to understand how things work in this world, maybe I need to go outside of what I can see and experience. I need to consider God. Remember, this whole book has been considering life under the sun, life without respect to God. Occasionally he'll be mentioned here and there as a force of nature, as a reality of nature, but the idea of actually communing with God, the idea of actually seeking wisdom from God, seeking a relationship with God, has not been talked about very much in this book. But now I think he's saying, without God, you cannot understand the things of God. You cannot understand the path of the wind, as you cannot understand how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Some things will be shielded from us, even when you do commune with God, even when you have a relationship with God. Those of you who know God, those of you who are Christians today, you know that just that doesn't in itself mean that you know everything about God. But we do learn about who he is. His word gives us so much so that we can know God and know his nature. And so much we would not know about God if he did not reveal it to us. And so here he's saying that needs to be the search. I think he's figuring out that the search is not, can I find meaning under the sun, running around like a rat trying to find meaning by myself, but can I come to know the God who understands everything and who can reveal to me some wisdom. Maybe that's where that change starts to take place. Because in verse 7 through verse 10, we're going to do that today. And then next week we'll pick up with chapter 12, which is some of the same material. It kind of blends from one to the next. But verses 7 through 10 starts this talk about the idea of remembering your Creator while you're young. Remembering your Creator. Doesn't just mean remember who your Creator is. It means think about Him, have reverence for Him, fear Him, listen to Him. Listen to your Creator. And he's going to talk here about how important it is to do that while you're young. And we've got like 4 more verses. And then next week we'll pick up chapter 12, and it will continue this theme of what it means to worship God and to fear God when you're young, and what it's like to fear God and to know God when you're old. And we'll talk about that some next week. But let's look at verses 7 through 10. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. But, so he's not against enjoying life. He says, let him enjoy them all. But let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. So in the future, times are going to get hard. I think this writer is talking about life from his own experience. I believe this is Solomon writing in his old age about his life and putting it in the words of this preacher, in the character of the preacher, because he lived a life that was not always wise, and he spent a lot of time going around trying to find meaning for his life in a lot of different things. And in his old age, I believe he regretted that. We'll talk about that more next week. But he says here for the young man, he says, "Be happy, young man, while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eye sees, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment." So in other words, yes, enjoy life. Life is a gift. Life is a good thing. But understand that you will be held accountable. There is a judgment with God that you will have to answer to. Our society today in America does not understand that. They like that first part of that verse, right? Have fun, have a good time, follow your heart. But the idea of remembering that there's a judgment to come, they don't like that so much. But it's true. He's coming onto the truth here. One more verse, verse 10 of chapter 11. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. So he's saying here, I believe he's saying to us, live the life you can live. But in the middle of this, he talks about how you need to know that all these things God will bring you to judgment for all these things. And earlier he says here, back in verse 8, however many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all, but let him remember the days of darkness. So let him remember, be aware that there's going to come a time when he has to answer for his life. And he'll be responsible to God and to those around him for the things he has done. Let me pray for you, and this next week we will look at chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes. We'll finish the book, and we'll talk about our next assignment. I'll tell you this much. It's going to be a prophet. That's all I'm saying. It's going to be a prophet in the Old Testament, one of the books of the prophets. But let's pray. I want to pray for you before we go. Father, I thank you that even though sometimes we're very hard-headed, you are able to get through to us and help us understand that the meaning of life cannot be found under the sun. The meaning of life cannot be found without you. Our life exists because of you. And so naturally, the meaning of our life cannot be found without you. And so I pray you would help those watching today to live a life that's based on what you say the meaning of our life is. The meaning of our life, and we'll talk about that next week from chapter 12. But also, Father, it's just to live for you, to glorify you, to honor you, to fear you. Proverbs says that the beginning of wisdom is to fear the Lord. And so help us to build our lives around you in a stronger way this week than we ever have before. And if someone's listening right now, help them make that transition. Reveal to their heart that you are the key to finding the meaning for their lives. You are the key to them understanding. And not just understanding, but laying hold of the purpose that you have for their life. I thank you that you make every life different and that you give purpose to every life under the sun. And our life has purpose here, and it will have purpose for eternity. And so I thank you for that. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week for chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes.